Rhythm Guitar Rockers. This is Mark from rhythmguitarlessons.net, and I want to welcome you here to this live stream on YouTube. If you are going to be joining us and you want to put your name in the chat, let us know where you're from. That'd be really great. We'll give you a quick shout out. Well, today I have a guest who I've had on before. Many times I've had on before. And today's topic that we're going to talk about, well, I titled it Stop Playing Boring Chords. And what I meant by that is there's so many more versions of the chords that you already know that could be, and I'm not saying they are, but could be much more interesting than the versions that you're playing now. Now, maybe they would fit in certain applications, maybe they wouldn't, but there is a whole world of chords out there that most people don't tap into. And like I said, they're the same names, different fingerings, but incredibly cool sounding stuff if you want to go down that road. And so today I have my friend Dr. Tommaso Zilio here, and we are going to talk about chord inversions. Tommaso.
Hello, people. Hello, Mark.
How you doing
Very
today,
good.
Tommaso?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So this was your idea. This is a fantastic idea. This is fun. This is something that I try to get my students at my school into as much as possible, as soon as possible.
Yes.
So it doesn't take me very long. Okay, cool. You just learned your cowboy chords. Okay, now we're going to 3-string triads, strings 1, 2, 3, then 2, 3, 4, then 3, 4, 5. Before I even really get into whole bar chords.
Yes, of course.
Because then if we combine all of those together, certain ones together, then we're just making the bar chord.
Yep.
So,
yeah. You see, I think most people have this unhealthy obsession with the bar chords. You know, like all those beginners, they start and they play the open string chords, and that's great. Do that. They open up a lot of space, a lot of possibility, a lot of space, a lot of music. And then they go straight into, I need to play bar chords. And those are much harder to play. Now, on an electric, are easier, of course, but on an acoustic, for instance, they're much harder to play cleanly. And yeah, you have more chords, you can open up more songs, but still, I think it's not the right moment to start bar chords, not immediately at least, okay? Because bar chords are useful if you really have a chord that you cannot play with open strings, and at the same time, you are the only instrument in the band. So for instance, if it's just guitar and voice. So for that, they are useful. But if you are not, if there is a rest and some band around you, if you have a bass player, if you have a piano player, if you have somebody else playing with you, if you have another guitar player who's already playing the bar chord, you are much better off learning the chords as distributed on the first 3 strings, for instance, or on the second 3 strings. So you can play this stuff higher on the fretboard and still cut through the mix, still be heard, and not just play. Okay? So yes, definitely, the 3-string triad are absolutely fundamental. People don't know what they're talking about. I can explain in a moment. But before doing that, okay? These are absolutely fundamental. They are good as they are. They make you understand the fretboard. They are easier to play than the bar chords. I mean, any beginner can play those triads, technically. Okay, while a bar chord requires a lot of strength on the index finger, those other triads here don't require nearly any strength or nearly any technique. They're simpler shaped than the open string chords. You just need to know where to put them. They sound better, and they're a starting point for a number of subsequent developments, so that with those triads, you can play better rhythms, so you can create extended chords like add 9, add 11, all these kind of things, 7th chord, etc. You can even solo. With the bar chords, you cannot do any of that. But that's the sales pitch, okay? I mean, I'm not selling anything, of course, right now. I mean, I'm just telling you, that would be the best way to go, okay? I'm selling you on this path, as opposed to learn the bar chords. Now, do I mean that you should never learn the bar chord? No, learn them later. But once you know some of those shapes here, like you were saying, by compounding those shapes together, you get the bar chord. You have this shape, this shape, them together, you practically have the bar chord.
Yeah, and then they understand where the bar chord comes from. It's just not this finger pattern that they have to memorize. They've
Exactly.
learned the fundamentals of what the chord is and the structure of it, and everything like that, and the different variations of it across the strings. And then when we put it all together, they have a better understanding of what a bar chord is instead of just some abstract thing.
Exactly. By the way, if somebody in the audience wants to write their opinion about all that, about bar chords, about anything, you guys can write everything in the chat. We are here, we are monitoring the chat. And or if you just want to say hi, okay, we are monitoring the chat, and later we're going to answer a few questions from the chat. So I'll make sure you guys write something, okay, because you have Mark and me here, okay, you have us here. Ask us some questions, because I know you guys have questions. So but the three string triad. What are those? Well, triad is a chord made of 3 notes, okay, like C major, D minor, all those kind of chords. You already have all those. If you know the open string chords, you already can play triads, because those are all triads. They're made of 3 notes, okay? The only thing we are doing is to playing those 3 notes on 3 strings, up higher the fretboard, okay? To do that, it's best if you know where are the notes on the fretboard. That would be the easiest way. But otherwise, you can just learn the shapes. It's really not that hard to do, okay? So, for instance, if you want to play a C major chord, okay, a C major chord is made by the notes C, E, and G, okay? That's basic theory, which doesn't mean it's simple, it means it's basic, okay? And if you don't know it, no problem, but if you know it already, that's basic, okay? And then if you need help with the basic theory, write it in the chat. I can give you a couple of links. But anyway, the C major chord is made by C, E, and G. If you play a C note, an E note, and a G note at the same time, you are playing a C major chord. When you're playing a C chord here with open strings, you are playing those 3 notes only. You're just repeating the same note, because you have E, open string, C, E, G, C, and E. So you're only playing C, E, and G, but you are repeating those notes. But you need only 3 strings to play that. One string is going to play C, one string is going to play E, one string is going to play G. So you pick 3 strings, any 3 strings close by, 3 strings far apart, any combination, and you try to find a C, an E, and a G. At the beginning, we can do this on the top 3 strings. So for instance, you can play a C, an E, and a G. So I'm playing the 3rd string and at the 5th fret, and it's a C. The 2nd string at the 5th fret, and it's an E. And the 1st string at the 3rd fret, and it's a G. Okay, how do I know that those notes are C, E, and G? I learned my notes on the fretboard. But if you don't, you can always find a diagram, or I can send you one if you tell me. Okay, a diagram with all the notes on all the strings and all the frets. So I'm just playing a C, an E, and a G. So that's that chord. It's a C major. But I can play them in different order. So if I move up higher the fretboard, I can find an E here, which is the 3rd string, fret number 9. A G here on the 2nd string, fret number 8. And a C note here on the E on the 1st string, fret number 8. So 9, 8, 8. And that's another C chord. Now, the order of the note is different. It's E, G, C. But they are still the same 3 notes, just in a different order. If you know these already, it's going to become more complex later. If you don't know these already, relax. You can always rewatch this live stream later, okay, and go step by step. If you need help, write me or Mark, okay? So, that's a C chord, and that's a C chord. But I can still move up higher the fretboard and play again those 3 notes in a different order. So you can have this G here on the 3rd string, 12th fret, this C here on the 2nd string, 13th fret, and this E here on the first string, 12th fret. It's harder to spell it this way than actually playing it. But you have this shape here, okay? And that's another C chord. So I have this position for the C chord, this position for the C chord, and this position for the C chord. It's still a C chord. Then I can go up higher and keep doing the same thing. Everything repeats 12 frets higher. So if you have a shape here, if you move it 12 frets higher, it's still a C chord. If this is a C chord, this is still a C chord. So far, so good. If I'm going too fast, write it in the chat. If I'm going too slow, write it in the chat. Okay. Makes sense so far to you, Mark? But of course, Mark to Mark, it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely makes sense to me. It's just the same notes in different areas of the fretboard, and we could just play them any way we want. I don't recall, just recently you had, I believe it was some kind of social media post about how many different variations you're up to, counting how couple hundred.
Couple hundred, yeah, it's up to 150 and change. Okay.
Right. So
only for the C chord.
right.
On a 24 fret guitar. But one day I just sat down and said, how many ways I can play this C chord? and so on a 24 fret guitar, you get to around 250 possible. I mean, those are three, of course, but you can play the C chord with separate string. You can play with widely separate strings. You can use some open strings. Okay, you have a lot of possible combinations and things you can do, but 250-ish.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that you don't have to play these three notes on adjacent strings. You can skip strings. If your fingers can reach, you could skip as many strings as you'd like.
Indeed, and some positions are not so bad, even skipping strings, like this one.
Yeah.
Okay, string 5, fret 3, string 4, fret 5, string 2, fret 5. I'm skipping string 3.
Yeah.
Other, or even this, similar. But some other, when you skip string, you have a bit of a stretch. Okay, so when you have a bit of a stretch, yeah, it depends how big is your extension. For the sake of this count, I think I calculated all the positions that are inside 5 frets, because you can stretch 5 frets. If you stretch more, you have more position. I mean, at this point, it's not practical for me to stretch more than 5 frets. Okay, yeah. Okay,
and then it becomes exponential if you want to tap one note way up the fretboard.
Yeah, but when you start tapping, then multiplies even more the possibility. So you see that there's a lot.
Yeah.
So here's the first thing is, when I mention this thing, some people go like, it's too much. I will never learn all of these. So they don't even start. Guess what, guys? I'm not using all those 250 positions either. Okay, it was more of an academic exercise. It's just to give me an idea how many possibilities there are, how much space there is for creativity. But you don't have to learn those positions. Okay, you learn the basic ones, you learn the useful ones, you learn a handful to get started, and then when you need, you can always find the other one, because the point is always, I'm still playing those 3 notes. I'm just finding different position when I can reach those 3 notes on a fretboard.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is this idea that goes around that if you don't know everything, if you don't know everything in depth, if you don't have a complete knowledge every time, you are not a good musician. But guess what? Most good musicians don't have a complete knowledge of everything. Okay, it's good to know that the rabbit hole goes very deep if you want to go in that direction. But most musicians don't. Most musicians try a few positions, they realize what kind of position they like, and then they play those. Okay.
Yeah, I have an analogy. It's like if you hired somebody to come and work on something on your house, something broke. You got a repairman, handyman, whatever. He'll walk into your house and he'll have a tool belt on, and it has the most commonly used tools that he has. But then he's figuring out how he needs to fix your problem, and he says, "Hold on, I got that in the truck. I got the tool I need. Let me go out and get it."
Yeah.
So it's not that he has it on his tool, everything on his tool belt all the time, but
Yep.
he knows it's available to him nearby. So he'll go out to the truck and get it. Well,
Exactly.
that could be something as much as, hold on, give me a minute, let me figure this out. I know something exists right here, or whatever. In a guitar playing sense, you're aware that this kind of stuff exists. Give me a moment, let me get it, and then I'll bring it right back, and then we could use it.
Exactly. And even if they don't have it in the track, to add to your metaphor, they know where to go and buy one, or who to
Exactly.
ask to find one. Okay, so that's the thing. That's the difference. Okay, it's those people. It doesn't matter if you have it at your fingertips. If
Right.
you really need it, you may not have it right now for a live gig, but if you need it to compose something, record a song, etc., you know where to find it. You know how to learn it. And then you can know how to use it. So it's good to know, even if you never go to the 250 and something positions, it's good to know that they are there if you wanted more positions. Again, I'm not using all of them by far.
Right.
Okay, but I know enough to get around. I know how to find them, and I know that if I need something that I haven't played before, I know where to find the notes at least. So that's the
So
idea.
that would lead me to the next logical thing here that I would like you to talk about. We're talking about playing these same notes all over the fretboard within reach of our fingers, but we're not always starting with the root note being in the lowest pitch.
Exactly. Good point. Fantastic point. Yes.
Can you
So let me.
elaborate on that?
No, yeah, because it's very, very important. People confuse that, okay, and I think that's a problem of learning music theory online. I mean, which I shouldn't say because I'm teaching music theory online, but there is a big confusion between the root of the chord and between the base of the chord. Two completely different ideas that you need to separate in your mind. The root of the chord is the note that gives the name to the chord, like C major. The root is C. It's right there in the name, okay? G minor, the root is G. It's right there in the name, okay? That's the root of the chord. The base of the chord, it's the lowest note you are playing in that moment while you play that chord. That's the base of the chord. The base could be any note in the chord. So I could play my C major, and let's play the position I played before, just so that we are clear. And the lowest note, it's the C note. Or I can play the C major, and the lowest note is the E note. Or I can still play the C chord, and the lowest note is the G note. Okay? Okay? I can play any of those notes as the bass. The root, it's still C. In all those three positions, the root is C because they are still the C major chord, and the name is still C major, and the root is the note that gives the name to the chord. Okay? Bass changes because the lowest note at any given moment is different. Here it's C, here it's E, and here it's G. Okay? So two different concepts. Now, when you change the base of the chord, you are playing a different inversion of the chord. That's what we call them. If you play the root as the bass, so the C is in the bass, that's called root position, unsurprisingly. If you play the E as the bass, so the next note in the chord, it's called the first inversion. And if you play the G at the bass, it's called the second inversion. I don't like this naming much, by the way.
I agree with you. I was going to hope you were going to bring this up.
Yeah, I mean, logically, we call it the first, the second, and the third position, right? No, we have to go root, first, and second, so now everybody's confused. So I like to call them like root at the base, third at the base, fifth at the base, or simply C with a base of E, and C with a base of G. The way you write it, it's C, or C/E, slash means with bass off, or C/G. Those are the famous slash chords.
Yes,
Okay.
and a lot of people get confused by that, and many times it's just a way to express more simply what inversion of the chord that you're playing. That's
Yes.
all.
If you find written a slash chord, the first letter it's a chord. And there's the slash, the second letter it's a note, and it's the bass note. If you have no idea how to play the whole thing, as a guitar player, play only the first half, so the chord, and ignore the note. It's okay if the note is played by the bass player. Whenever you have a slash, you read the first half of the chord, the bass player reads the second half of the chord, and everything works out perfectly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. Okay, just to think of the slash as guitar/bassist. Okay, you read the left half, the bass player reads the right half, and you're fine. If you are more advanced, or if you are the only instrument in the band, so it's only you, then you may need to know how to compound this chord, how to create this chord. You just play the chord and make sure that the note written after the slash is the lowest note you play. Done. That the note after the slash, right now the note after the slash is a note in the chord. It's for C major, it's either C, E, or G. Sometimes you see that after the slash, you have a note that is not in the chord. That's okay. It still means that chord with that bass. In this case, it's not anymore a triad. It's not just an inversion of a triad. It's something else. It could be many other things. You still play the left half. The bass player still plays the right half. It still works. It's just something different. And that it could be a bit more complicated, okay? So there's a comment by Warren saying that he frequently sees a slash chord to describe movement like the cliche C, G/B, A minor, so C major. Bit out of tune. C, G/B. If you guys look at the C and the B and the A, so the base of the C chord, which is also the root in this case, the B in C/B, and then A minor, it creates this kind of descending line. Okay, but yeah, it's exactly right. That's one of the most common uses of the slash chord.
Well, that phrasing you did of that the phrasing that you just did, probably subconsciously, I mean, that's Stairway to Heaven.
Well, yeah, well,
yeah, it could later on in the song.
Yeah. But it's many other. I mean, it's also Landslide.
Oh, Landslide too. Yeah, I guess it's all of them.
It's also Dust in the Wind. It's also it's a very, 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 very common thing, and it's actually a very old chord progression. You find it in Bach. In the Bach Bourrée, there is a passage where you go. So it's essentially in this case, not a G, but it's an E minor with a bass of G. Then you have B major with a bass of F sharp, and then you have an E minor. And you have essentially a descending line G, F sharp, E, and an ascending line E, F sharp, G, when at the same time, blah, blah, blah. It's a very, very old trick, essentially. Yeah. That's the idea.
And it works very well.
It does. It does. People like it, so we keep using it. I mean, but lots and lots of songs have descending cliches. Okay. They have this descending cliche, typically starting from the root and going down. And you can stop anytime, but sometimes you go on, you essentially do the root, then the 7th note of the scale, the 6th note of the scale, the 5th note of the scale. So you go down from the root to the 5th. That's kind of the typical thing to do. You can go beyond, you can stop before, but it's typically stops around the 5th. And so you just put a chord for every one of those notes. So yeah, it's a cliche, but it works. And if we sit down here, we can start saying song names like it's nothing. I mean, it's Goodbye to Romance by Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum. You can go on and on and on. Those are all situations where you have this descending bass line, one way or another.
Yes.
Okay. So yes.
So now, as far as now that we've established the fact that we don't have to play the root note as the bass note in the chord, that logically leads me to having you not necessarily explain, but possibly give examples of voice leading.
Yes.
Yes, that would be at least in my mind. I'm thinking, okay, we have our triads. We could play them all over. The root note doesn't have to be the bass note. Now enters in voice leading. Could you explain what voice leading is?
Definitely I can. So let's say you have 2 chords, okay? And we're going to start with something simple, okay? I'm going to have 2 chords. One chord, it's C major. The notes are C, E, and G. And the other chord is G major. The notes are G, B, and D. Okay? I could play them in 2 different positions. I could play C, E, and G, and then I could just shift up and play G, E, and B. So, you guys know it, C and G. I could play this way, but frankly, it's quite lame. Okay. It doesn't really sound good, is disjointed, and it's also technically difficult. There is this big jump that you're making here. It's technically difficult. So it would be better if you could find a position close by. Okay, it would be definitely easier to play, and as we're gonna see, it's also gonna sound better. So how do you do that? Well, the idea would be to lead the voice. It's a technical term, but the idea is this: if you don't have a guitar, but you have 3 singers, okay, and you want those 3 singers to sing the C major chord, one of them is singing the C note, one of them is singing the E note, and one of them is singing the G note. Okay? Turns out on the guitar, you have 3 strings. Every string is a singer, okay? And one of them is singing the C note, one of them is singing the E note, and one of them is singing the G note. Right? So, when you move to the G chord, the thing you want is that every singer or every string makes the smallest possible jump to the note of the next chord. So look at that. Actually, let me grab a little whiteboard. Okay. So one chord, the C chord, it's C, E, and G, right? There we go, C, E, and G. The G chord is G, B, and D. You notice that both chords have the G note in common. So, since they have the G note in common, which means when I'm playing the C major chord, there is a G note available here already, it makes sense that the singer singing the G note just keeps singing the G into the next chord. Okay? So the string here, this note here doesn't move. We just keep it. Okay? So the first string will go from G to G. Okay? Meaning the first string, the note on the first string will not move. And then we try to move the other notes so that they make the smallest possible movement. The logical way to do it is that the C goes to B and the E goes to D. So it works this way. Okay, you see, G and G is a small movement because it's no movement. C and B, it's one fret movement, and E and D, it's a 2-fret movement. Okay, so what's happening is that C, E, G, G stays where it is. We said E goes to a D, and C goes to a B, and the new shape is this one. 4, 3, 3. Okay, 4 on the third string, 3 on the second and first string. That's a G chord, and you see that we moved very little. It's easier technically than doing this because it's a big jump. Okay, so it's much easier to play this. It sounds better. I mean, compare the sound. Yeah, with okay, it's much more connected. Unless you have a specific reason to jump, this should be your default idea. Okay. Every voice, every note moves the least possible amount. It's technically easier. It sounds better. I don't think there's any reason not to do that. That's the idea. Okay. This is called voice leading. What the voices are again, metaphorically speaking, if you have 3 singers singing these, each one is a voice, okay, and every voice is moving between notes. Those would be the strings on your guitar. And you are leading them in the sense that you are making them move the least possible amount. Okay? That's the idea. Whatever position of the C chord you have, there is always a position of the G chord close by that does exactly the same. In this position, you have E, G, and C. The G note stays still. The E note goes down to a D. The C note goes down to a B. In this position, you have G, C, E. The G note stays still. The C note goes down to a B. The E note goes down to a D. So wherever you are, you have a chord close by. Every C you can find, you have a G chord close by. Turns out, in any position of the C chord you find, you have any other chord close by. Okay? And you want to always pick the closest one, always. You want, unless you have a reason not to do it, you want to pick the closest one. Okay? That's voice leading. Okay?
Yes.
Again,
Excellent
whatever the position, on any string set, on any position of the guitar, on any inversion, wherever you can find a C chord, you always have a G chord close by because you just need to move the notes this way. Okay? Now, this seems complex the first time you do it. It is. Okay? The first time you do it. Once you do this for a few more chord progression than just C and G, it does become second nature. It becomes quite natural. You start discovering all the patterns. Music seems to move always in similar ways. You discover the pattern, you discover how to connect those things. If you have more than triads, you have seventh chord, other things, this still works. You just need to adjust with the number of notes. Okay, there are tricks, there are ways. But it gets easier and easier until eventually this is how you think, okay, which again seems strange at first. But this becomes the way you think, and then you can play any chord anywhere and always find the closest position. When this happens in your mind, it's quite freeing. Okay,
can you just add an E minor chord to that?
definitely.
Can you write it on the whiteboard so you could just show the transition between the G to the E minor?
Definitely, an E minor would have the notes E, G, and B.
Yep.
Good example, by the way. Okay. So you see, this time we are on the G chord. We are here, and we need to move to the E minor chord, which is here, E, G, B. Okay. And the first thing you do is always try to spot common notes. Well, you have to, because G, it's in both notes, in both chords, and B, it's in both chords, right? So logically, the only one left is D to E, which, as it always happens, it's close by. So I just need to play. Once I have a position for the G chord, I just need to hold two strings, find where the D is, and move this D higher by 2 frets to play an E. Okay. And so the D is on the second string, just move it up 2 frets. And that's a E minor. So again, C, G, E minor. Okay, and literally whatever chord you want, if it's in key, they're typically very, very close. If the chords are out of key, they are still close. Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, you always have something close by. Always, always, always. Okay. Can you can you put on screen the comment by Jason a moment?
Sure.
Definitely, Jason. Okay, I'm sold. I will see if I'm advanced enough to sign for Mr. Zilio's site. Thank you. If you have any questions, if you don't know if you're advanced enough, etc., send me an email. You go on the website, scroll to the very end. There's a little button with written contact. Okay, click that. Send me an email. I can ask you a few questions, and I can see if you're advanced enough. You probably are. If you're on the following this explanation, even partially, you are advanced enough.
I was just gonna say, if he said, "Okay, I'm sold," that means he understood enough, which leads me to believe that, yeah, you're advanced enough.
And with one of my course, we start exactly here. So, but if you need to ask me what course it is, what works best for you, send me an email. Okay, not a problem.
Other person that's a filter. It's like, no, he actually answers his own emails.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, see, being on this side, it's obvious for me. Of course, I'm reading my email every day. But it's true that a lot of people write me, and this is probably just an automated system. But in case you're reading the emails, no, I'm reading the emails. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah.
I'm reading the emails.
I read mine. You read yours.
Yeah. I don't have an assistant for the emails. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm reading them myself. You guys write me, your email gets read. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, I mean, in today's day and age, you send an email and say, well, I hope I get a response.
Yeah, right.
You never know.
True. Very in this day and age, I guess lots of people are using ChatGPT or something to answer emails. But I mean, come on. I mean, no. If you guys write me, you're gonna get a human response for sure. And if you guys write me about what you want to do, if you need help with the courses, you're definitely gonna get an answer, and as soon as possible.
Well, so, what course would that be that you would go through this kind of stuff right in the beginning? Which one?
This is in complete chord mastery.
Yeah.
In the chord course. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, the first session goes through this stuff way more in depth with ideas on how to remember the whole thing and how to exercise the whole thing. Because one thing is intellectual understanding, okay, and one thing is your fingers go to the right chord when you need it. Okay, and you want the intellectual understanding, but with practice you can go also from here to your fingers go to the right chord when you need it. That's what you want at the end of the day.
And so just to let you know, Jason, I've taken that course myself.
Endorsement.
I knew some stuff, but now I know more. So it's a very good course. Absolutely. So one quick thing that I wanted to mention too about that voice leading is that people typically hear that a lot in piano music, but they're not accustomed to hearing it in what I call contemporary guitar. You'll hear it in like classical guitar pieces and stuff like that, but it's so common when you hear piano that it just seems normal. And this is what and how people who play piano learn. But yet, for some reason, when people go down the path of learning the guitar, this does not get introduced soon enough. It's not a fundamental building block of playing guitar, which it should be.
Exactly. It should be. And we actually hear it all the time. We just don't realize, but we're just hearing it all the time.
Yes.
You remember that song by Daft Punk, Get Lucky?
Yes.
then you have the next chord, this. Yeah. B minor, D, F sharp minor, and then E major. It's voice led. The rhythm part, the famous guitar rhythm part, played by Nile Rodgers, nonetheless. If you guys don't know
Man,
Nile Rodgers, I mean, Nile Rodgers is God. Okay, I'm
man.
sorry, but it's one of the best players ever. Okay, I mean, you've heard people are like, I never heard Nile Rodgers. Oh no, you did.
You just don't
you
know it.
you just don't know it, but it's been in so many songs by so many different artists that you've heard Nile Rodgers, or you've heard Paul Jackson Jr., who has a, not saying the same style, it's a similar style but with very different accents. But you've heard those guys, and they always voice lead their chord. Okay. Actually, you will use this. It's voice led. It's a few triads on string 2, 3, and 4 with the most basic voice leading. Literally, it's totally by the book, and then with an interesting rhythm on the right hand. And I'm not making it justice, by the way, because Nile Rodgers' right hand, it's magic. And to reproduce that, it's you can get some out of that, but unless you spend your whole career doing that, you don't get that sound and that groove. So it makes sense. So, but anyway, the technical part, the theory part, it's just 4 triads voice led.
Yep.
Okay, so literally, if you master this concept, you have so much music and possible compositions and possible improvisation at your fingertips. Okay. And again, that's where you start. That's the rhythm. Later, you can use this to solo. Okay, or actually, I will do this. But the idea is you can use those positions as target note for your soloing. So, like, play something and stop on one of those notes. Rather than playing those 3 notes, you imagine those 3 notes and you just stop on one of those notes. Okay, so you can target those notes in a solo, and so you are sounding in the chord progression. That's a different concept called chord tone soloing.
It's a different concept, but the fact is that this information is going to be able to benefit you in other ways in other areas of playing guitar. So I know we're focused on rhythm guitar, but that's why learning these 3-string, 3-note triads as soon as possible is so important, because you're getting so much more out of it than just other chord shapes.
Exactly.
You know, like there's a guy that we know from New Zealand. Take the chord tones, add 1 note, and you could actually make a lot of music with that playing a guitar solo.
Yes.
And so, you know, 3 out of the 4 notes are just the shape of the chord that you're playing, but you're playing the notes individually.
Exactly. You could potentially learn to solo without knowing a single scale. I'm not recommending that. It's always good to learn your scales. But potentially you could learn to solo without knowing scales and just going along with the triads. It's best if you know both.
Yes. Well, there's an exercise that I've done myself where I only take the triads and I force myself to be as musical as I can with them in a lead guitar kind of sense. And so that relies, all of a sudden now you're like working on like, you know, what's the rhythm of the phrase?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not focused on notes. We're so limited on notes that we need to start focusing on the other elements. And then the other aspects, the creativity, the slides, the bends, the vibrato, the actual rhythm of the phrase. When you start taking away, you know, 4 out of the 7 notes out of the scale, it's like, well, what am I going to do now? There's a lot you could do.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily that's what you're going to do, but it really helps you develop other things as well. So, but you can't do that if you don't learn what these notes are and where they are in your guitar neck.
Yes, exactly.
And the
And
easiest way to do it is through learning rhythm,
yes,
using
exactly.
it in a rhythm
Exactly.
context, and then expand on that later on.
Exactly, exactly, and it's exactly the expansion. Meaning, at the beginning, you may think like I'm playing only those three notes over that chord. It's limiting, but in reality, you are just learning how those three notes sound, and later you can put in more notes.
Yeah.
It's a temporary restriction, just so you learn how this stuff sounds. So later, you can imagine the sound first and play it on the guitar, as opposed to just fish for the note.
Yeah.
That would be the um, the idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if we took the triad and we took a note away and we all of a sudden we got double stops, all of a sudden you got these blues players that are playing very melodically, but with this double stop kind of thing going on. And it's like that's because they're implying certain chords that's going on. And so, I mean,
Exactly.
we could reduce it from three notes to two notes and we could still be incredibly musical with it. And are we
Yeah.
playing rhythm or are we playing lead now? I don't know. It's kind of like this blurred line, but it's very musical.
Like you say, you cannot buy a lead guitar. You can only buy a guitar. Okay. There's no such a thing as a lead guitar or a rhythm guitar.
What is that?
I don't know.
It's playing guitar. That's what that
Playing
is.
guitar. I'm playing a D major chord and I'm playing this double stop. And these double stop are both in D major because they are part of this shape and part of this other shape for D major. And then I'm putting some notes in between. And then you put some rhythmic bump, and it's just one chord, okay, in a fairly standard position. Those tricks you learn those positions, you learn those tricks, or you learn stuff like okay, that's a C major chord.
Yep.
Okay, just played with double stops. So, but it all starts in knowing where the triads are, so that you can play. You can play around the triad.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
agree.
idea.
Very foundational.
Exactly. Exactly. So there is another question I want to answer, which is the one about was asked at the beginning. I think when they're new to the concept, people struggle with shifting position reliably.
Sure.
Yes, that's true. Also, when people learn open string chords, and the idea would be to make an exercise out of that. Okay, so remember, one thing is intellectual understanding, one thing is actually having your finger do it. So you need to balance the two things. You need to understand what's going on, know the notes on the fretboard, know the theory of C, E, G for 1, 3, 5, and all this kind of thing, which we can cover. And the other is to spend some time explaining to your fingers what they have to do. So one thing you can do is to just take this chord position and this chord position and go back and forth a few times. Okay, until your finger get this movement. At the beginning, it's just simple repetition, okay? It's really not rocket science. And you do the same for all the other position with the C and G, for instance. What you think right now is that, do I have to do this for all the possible pair of chords? No, because many situations, as you see, since music has specific patterns inside, those movement will reappear in several other songs, in several other chord progression, in different keys, but the physical movement will be the same. So once you do a handful of chord progression, your fingers got an idea on how this whole thing works, and then eventually you can just play anything, okay? Because you learn the basic movements, okay? You learn the basics vocabulary of changing between those chords. So it may look hard at first, but if you practice a little bit, this stuff becomes easier and easier and easier and easier until again it becomes second nature and you know where the right chord is. Okay? But yeah, at first it feels like I have to do this for every chord pair, which again, I'm telling you, it's not true. You don't have to do this for every chord pair. Okay? Just saying. But you have, yes, to sit down a little bit every day and just do a little bit of repetition. And that it's true for everybody. I'm still doing something like that. I mean, I'm doing it in a different way. I'm playing stuff like that, which are scales of chords. Okay, but by and large, it's the same idea. They're all triads. Okay, so you always have to train those triads and keep them fresh under your finger. Yes, but you learn to do more and more stuff, more and more music, and becomes more and more musical. Not only quantity, but it's quality. And until you find your sound, and then you can train your sound essentially. So the purpose of doing all these, it's yes to learn music, yes to learn how to play other people's song, yes if they give you a score or a chord chart you can play it, okay, but also you play the stuff and you hear the sound, and eventually you find your sound, the sound you're after, or the stuff you like, and then by itself you build your style. Because of all the possibility you play, you find the one that are more you, and that becomes your style. That's how it works.
Options are good. Now you know what you like and what you don't like. You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, exactly. And and once you know what to learn, and then you can start. Because you see, developing your style, it's more of a matter of having a wide enough knowledge or wide enough ear to know what you like and what you don't like, and then picking the stuff you like.
Yep, that's what
People
it is.
who go, there's a lot of people say, I'm not learning theory so I can develop my own style. You are shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, learn more and then play only the stuff you like. That's how you develop your style.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Well, Dr. Zilio, I want to thank you for your time today. Okay. Now, something that actually directly ties into what we're talking about today, I know that you have a free resource, and I am going to.
Yes. You're going to put the resource in on the screen. Thank you. So, as I said, to do this, it's easier if you know the notes on your fretboard. If you don't know the note on your fretboard, don't worry. You can learn the chords and the notes at the same time. If it's a good idea though to download this ebook here. It's free. The link is down here, musictheoryforguitar.com/guitar-notes. Again, for most people, I would recommend learning the notes and the chord at the same time. It just reinforces the learning. I wouldn't spend months and months to just learn the notes. It's best to learn the notes and something musical like the chords at the same time, so one study reinforces each other. But learning the notes seems to be one of these Herculean tasks, okay, where you have to memorize everything on the fretboard and all the position, and it takes forever, and then it doesn't stick, and then you learn it once and you forget it and you learn it again. In reality, like everything, you need to go at it the right way. In this ebook, I'm explaining the way I use to learn them myself and the way I use to explain them to my student. And if they do the exercises contained in this book, they learn the notes. It's a series of exercises that you can do 5 minutes a day. Okay, you do 5 minutes a day of the first exercise, then 5 minutes a day of the second exercise once you finish the first, and so on and so forth. I think there are 6 levels. Okay, if I remember correctly. Once you get to the last level, you know your notes on the fretboard. Simple as that. Okay, it's a progressive series of exercise, so that you never sit down and stare at the fretboard and try to forcefully memorize this thing. You never do that. It's always, let's sit down, let's perform a specific exercise. If you get the ebook, you also get the link to a page where you can see me performing all those exercises and explain to you step by step what am I thinking, so what's happening in my mind while I'm doing the exercises. Okay. And of course, if you have, after seeing all these and reading the ebook, you still have questions, just write me an email, not a problem. Okay. And I will explain everything you need to explain. You can take these and take my courses at the same time. It's actually recommended. So you you can always practice one and the other, and alternating between those two things, and it works best. Okay, and it's free. This one is free. Thank you, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I actually have something also. Um, it's not quite the same, but it is a free resource. And so it's the beginner's guide to adding lead guitar elements to your rhythm playing. And what this covers is if you've ever heard somebody play a chord progression and you hear these single notes that occur in between the chord changes, this is going to explain that. It's going to give you examples step by step with tablature and audio examples of exactly what it's supposed to sound like. It's a very easy way to break into not just playing from one chord to the next by adding little notes that carry you from one chord to the next chord, and all the notes are correct. I explain where the notes come from, why we want to play those particular notes. And if you've never done anything like this at all, this is the place to begin, because it is as elementary as it gets. So you don't have to worry about this being too complicated, too hard, anything like that. It actually is the actual starting point. If you know a little bit about this and you could do a little bit here and there, this might not be the one for you, because like I said, this is where it all starts. So you don't need to know anything. I'm going to teach you what you need to know in order to go on to other things later on. So there you have it. Free resource from me, free resource from Dr. Zilio. Email us, whatever you got to do. We'll answer your questions, we promise.
We are teacher. It's our job.
This is what we do.
That's what we like doing it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right. Well, Doctor, it's been a pleasure, and we're going to do it again. I don't know when, but we have a way of doing it a lot.
Yes, and always a pleasure being here, Mark. It's always a nice. You have a nice live stream here, and I hope your audience enjoyed that.
Yes.
But you have a nice live stream, and I like the kind of editorial cut you give to your videos. It's very to the point, very. I like that you put all these attention to rhythm guitar, because everybody's like lead all the time.
Yeah.
But we know that for actual musicians, most of the time you are playing rhythm, and you need to be able to play rhythm well. That gets you more gigs than anything else.
It's the number one reason why you get and keep a gig.
Yep.
You're
You can
absolutely
play
right.
rhythm.
All right. Well, Doctor, we will speak again. And I want to thank everybody for coming in, leaving your comments. We appreciate your time as well. And if you need to, go back and rewatch it again. If you missed something or you need to hear something a second time, go back and rewatch it. It's going to be available up on that YouTube platform forever.